Well, in what is an increasingly diverse world, religion, it seems, no longer has the hold on so many of us as it once had. Is it time there was a rethink on how religion is taught in our schools, or in a world of intolerance, is religious instruction perhaps more important than ever? Very good to have your company. Hello, welcome to Roundtable. I'm David Foster. A recent UK investigation has called for an overhaul of religious education, suggesting it be replaced with a new subject covering religion and beliefs and values. But with so many different cultures and views to consider, who decides what should be taught and how?
Religious education in England's schools is becoming an unpopular subject. With rising dropout rates, could a revamping of the subject make it more appealing and inclusive to all students? A recent UK investigation has called for a major overhaul of religious education. It recommends that in order to reflect an increasingly diverse world, the subject should be called Religion and Worldviews, including non-religious worldviews such as humanism, secularism or atheism.
The idea of calling it religion and worldviews, in the eyes of some of the commissioners in particular, is that will make it more attractive to those who do not affiliate with the religion and want to see a broader base for the subject that they're sending their children to.
Figures show that the number of pupils taking religious education at A-level this year have fallen by 22% compared with 2017. Only 2 out of the 14 of the commissioners of the report were teachers.
A lot of teachers are saying, thank you commissioners, but you've just gone and made our job even more difficult in broadening the base. I think the commissioners want to say, yes, for those who RE is successful, of course this might look like yet another change, but the real change that the Commission wants to make is in places where it's not happening.
The teaching of non-religious views is current practice in many schools where religion is taught, but the quality of how it's delivered is suffering in a number of schools. Many have welcomed and praised the report. The Church of England said the proposals will help pupils make sense of religion and belief as it is lived today. Humanists also welcome the findings, but not everyone is as keen. The Catholic Education Service said the quality of religious education is not improved by teaching less religion. And the Board of Deputies of British Jews said the report was fundamentally flawed.
One of the concerns is that by broadening the subject base, knowledge base of this discipline, it will dilute it, and ultimately you will get a kind of a less academically rigorous and ultimately, yes, less useful way of approaching the question of religious literacy.
With such diverse ranging views, could teaching religious education and worldviews promote better understanding in society? And should all schools make this compulsory?
I'm very pleased to say that joining us via Skype we have James Holt, Senior Lecturer of Religious Education at the University of Chester, as well as being a Mormon himself. He's written school textbooks, among other things, on Buddhism. At the round table we have Alastair Lichten, Head of Education at the National Secular Society. Bill Moore is with us, Chair of the Association for RE, that's Religious Education Inspectors, Advisors and Consultants, and Farid Panjwani, Member of the National Commission on Religious Education and one of the commissioners of the report that has brought us all together here at the round table. Farid, since you were on the Commission, let me come to you first of all, and this is something you can all jump in on.
Yes.
Why is religious education important? Isn't it just up to parents and society to instruct their offspring in the ways of the world?
Well, I think you used the 2 words which make it clear. Religious instruction is certainly something that parents and communities should be doing, but we are talking about religious education, which is to understand religion as a human experience, and not just to understand the religion in which you have grown up, but to understand religions of the world, other religions, and now we are saying even worldviews that are not religious. Now, this is where the role of the schools come in, because that's what you can't expect the parents to do. An academic study of the human experience of religion and religions. And that's where religious education comes in, while the religious instruction, which used to be the case until...
Well, it used to be called religious
Yes,
instruction,
exactly.
then it became religious education.
Exactly. So that's the difference. I think it's important to understand that we are not here talking about making people religious, but helping them understand religions, just like we help them understand a historical phase or a scientific matters or geography. Religion also is a part of human experience which needs to be understood in an academic fashion.
Bill, I'm wondering, you're an inspector. You go around and you look at the standards. Look, it's a long time since I was at school, but my religious education or instruction, I think as it was then, was pretty hopeless. And the interest in religion, or Christianity in this country, seems to be dropping off in particular. Do we really care about it that much anymore?
I'm sure there are many people who would argue that we don't care about it much anymore. But I think the vast majority of people recognise the importance of what we would now call religion and belief, and that whether your beliefs are religious or some form of other belief, what we believe influences how we live our lives. And in the schools that I go around, where religious education is well taught, you get children and young people exploring and learning about not just other religions and other beliefs, but it's also an opportunity for them to learn about themselves.
But there are very few teachers who specialise in this. Very often it's just something else you do in the rest of your working week.
And that is, well, I'm not sure that it's something that you do in the rest of your working week, but I mean, that's something that I think the report really needs to be commended for. It's picked up that far too often an important subject like religious education is taught by people who are not trained effectively in how to teach it and how to encourage the kind of learning that enables children and young people to develop a good understanding of what is actually a very powerful force in the world still, the religious beliefs, but also non-religious beliefs that affect communities locally, nationally and globally.
Do you have to always start this, and this is for anybody, James, you too, up there, do you have to start this from the premise that religion is always a force for good? Let's ask the secular society first.
Okay.
That was the historic idea behind religious instruction, as it was, that, well, religion and specifically Christianity is a force for good, and it's part of the public value of education to promote it. We've come a long way from that in most schools. There are too many people who still view religious literacy as about having a positive view of religion. There's too many people that still view the role of religious education as sort of advertising a positive view of religion. But equally, there are many, many people within the RE community teaching in schools, writing reports, who see this as you know, an area of human experience that should be studied, that should be explored and talked about, and we shouldn't start with any sort of this is good, this is intrinsically good, or this is intrinsically bad, or this is kind of intrinsically anything. Often people do still, a lot of people have a negative view of RE. They hear RE and they think it's about promoting religion. Maybe that was their experience at school. Maybe they've had that direct experience of sort of bad practice. And so you hear people say, there are people say, we should just get rid of it, just get rid of RE, because they've got that negative view of it.
Let's bring James in at this particular point. You wanted to say something when I was asking about whether religion has to be presumed to be a force for good. I gave the question first of all to Alastair here, but you wanted to say something.
Yeah, in many ways I would agree with Alastair as well, because if all we present is the positive side of religion, which there is, then it's not sometimes the experience of children within their experiences and everything else. So it's very problematic. That's all we do, is present the chocolate box view of religion. We have to recognize the negative view. But then religion is a positive force as well in individuals' lives. And I think that's really key to come through, that in the vast majority of people's lives, it's a positive influence in the way that they live, the way they view society and everything else. But to do anything but recognize a negative side and being able to critically explore that would be doing it disservice.
Yeah, I think you have to obviously have a balance here, but I certainly don't remember anybody suggesting that religion was a source of, or religious intolerance was perhaps a source of conflict everywhere in the world. Do you think that should be in the curriculum?
Yeah, well, I think we should not presume that religion is necessarily always a force for good. That would defeat the purpose of what we want to teach. I have a slightly different view. I think instead of talking about whether religion is a force of good or bad, we should see religion as a tradition that is available, as sources, as texts that are available for people to make use of in good or bad purposes. They draw upon that, and then they make cases which are good or for bad. And
But that's okay when you're older.
Yeah.
But you're talking about this starting when people are 6 or 7 years old. They're not going to be delving into ancient texts and
but they
inquiring themselves.
but we
They're
should,
taught.
Yes, and we should expose even our younger children to the fact that religion can be deployed in many different ways, and we should discuss with them. I mean, and unfortunately in our society there are many events which provide opportunities where this can be discussed, that religion can be a source of both good and bad, and I think we should very clearly discuss this.
And actually, I think it's, again, really important that we recognise that often we underestimate young children and what they're capable of doing and capable of exploring. And that's, which is not to say that they will understand it in the same way as an adult. But when you look at morals and values, and so you can look at some of the really rich stories that come from all of the religious traditions, we can start also to explore things that make, well, that humans do that actually are not very laudable at all. And I think one of the things I really value about religious education, it's an exploration of what it means to be human. In that huge gamut of what it means to be human, and to explore with children and young people what makes somebody good, what do we think makes somebody bad.
And isn't that there at the moment?
Well, I would hope it is in places, but I think it is most deeply and meaningfully explored in religious education, because it's that opportunity in the curriculum where children and young people get that protected time, or we hope it's protected, to focus on those issues.
Can I just ask James something? Because I think we want to get a personal story in here, if we may. You're from a Mormon family, and as I understand it, when you wanted to explore other religions, there was a suggestion that it might take you away from the Mormon Church. You didn't find that to be the case, and you found that studying other religions, I think Buddhism is one of your specialities as a doctor of theology. You found that it made you a better person.
Yes. I mean, it was a very, very small number of people, but when I went away to study at university, there were a couple of my faith community who were worried about me losing my faith. I mean, 25, 30 years later, that's certainly not the case. And they recognize the value that actually studying other religions has brought, because either I've encountered other faiths, I've encountered other people and learned from them, or I've actually been able to understand myself. But why don't I hope it's helped me find my position in the world as well. And I mean, I'm so passionate about the subject, I'm so passionate about learning about other religions and non-religious worldviews. We need people to be able to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, to be able to work out, well, where is the narrative where I stand?
Yeah, Farid, you can make your point in a minute, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
You wanted to say something,
So
okay, well, let's go to Farid. Yep.
Okay, I was saying that, I mean, this is a case where studying other religions has strengthened the religion of birth and the person continue. But even if that is not the case, I think that's not an issue, because we ultimately want communities to thrive, but we also want individuals to have a satisfied spiritual and moral life. And if they find it somewhere else apart from the community and tradition of their birth, I think that should also be.
Is that why you're including atheism
not to
as
do
a
that,
suggestion,
not to that.
and agnosticism?
Not to do that, not to encourage that, but to say that if in the world of today there is a diversity of these views, and if people find their moral and spiritual satisfaction anywhere, that should be acceptable, rather than stop people from moving in the directions.
So you
which
looked
would be
at me
satisfying.
quizzically. Or maybe that's just your normal look.
No, it is. It is. Well, no. I think that when we look at beliefs and that they're talking about worldviews. I mean, we have in our classroom children and young people from a whole range of backgrounds. And I think it's fair to say, and I hope you'd agree with me here, that actually non-religious views have been shared in the classroom for probably 15 to 20 years reasonably regularly. And you have to do that. If you've got children and young people in the classroom and they say, but I don't believe in God, and your response to that is, oh dear, then they're going to switch off religion straight away. And what we need to do is to engage with young people so that they are able to recognise that we're all on this search for meaning and purpose in life. And the secular society, I think, is a strong part of that.
Where does the secular society stand on this as a whole? What should children be taught?
We've got our 21st Century RE for All campaign, and we've over the last couple of years been talking about some of the structural problems with religious education as it currently stands. I think all young people need to, at school, have the opportunity to learn about the diversity of different worldviews that are represented in the society they're going to grow up in. They need to understand how people's worldviews impact their views on philosophical issues, moral issues, social issues, political issues. And they need to understand some of the ways in which people's worldviews and how they manifest their worldviews interact with rights, with human rights, with the idea of common citizenship. And so the areas of stuff that's currently covered in RE, young people find most interesting is looking at current affairs. I mean, sort of talking about the kind of 6 major faiths approach of, Christians believe this, Muslims believe this, Hindus believe that. That's not exciting or interesting.
Yesterday, is it?
I think if we look at the eras of RE in this country, I think that was probably from the sort of the 70s and onwards, and we're now at the tail end of that era, and hopefully into a new era. How people's worldviews actually affect kind of real life? That's the issue, the area.
Sorry to interrupt, but is there perhaps a fear from some of the more established religions in this? And I'm thinking about Judaism and Catholicism, who have both rejected this Commission's report and said it is fundamentally flawed. Is there a fear that there's going to be a dilution of their faiths by this? And is that a legitimate concern?
If you view the purpose of RE as an advertising space, then more things in that advertising space sort of do dilute that. And that is, I mean, certainly many faith groups have supported this. Some faith groups, either across all schools or in what they think of as their schools, faith schools, think, we have this space, we should be able to advertise our religion, and we don't view non-religious worldviews or minority faiths as shouldn't be put on kind of an equal footing in that sense.
James, do you understand that concern?
Yes, because I think in a faith school, it's got a very different purpose. It's a part of the community and teaching the community, whereas actually in state schools, that's not its purpose. So while I understand that view, I'm not sure I agree with it, especially as has been said, the broadening of things, because the headline seems to be about the inclusion of non-religious worldviews, which is fantastic, but it's also recognized that there are things beyond the big 6, that there's not just those 6 major religions and not just the mainstream expressions. So Baha'is are mentioned, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are mentioned, Rastafari are mentioned, and those are within and also outside of those. So I think there is, I suppose, a dilution, a reducing in the number of faith, or the amount of Catholicism or whatever else that can be.
So let me ask Farid on the commission. I mean, you're Muslim, but you were employed on this commission not because of your faith, but because of your expertise in education. But there might be a concern among some people that this is minority faiths wanting to push themselves ahead of what is the traditional, in the UK, Church of England Christianity faith, and that those would get sidelined.
Well, I mean, I don't think that is the case for 2 reasons. One is already from the 1988 Act, there is a space for religions other than Christianity, and children are being taught. We have simply recommended that we need to recognize that these are not the only things that children need to know. that range has to be broadened. Now, I think the other thing which is important to understand is the point is not necessarily that you are trying to become expert in a particular religion, but it is to understand the nature of religions and how religious experience has shaped human beings. So whether you learn 3 religions or 5 religions, that's the aim. And then if you are interested, you can learn about others things. So for example, 2 things that I think we are highlighting very much. One is the internal diversity of religions. We are saying that, look, whether you are talking about Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, it is important that children understand that these religions are internally diverse. Secondly, that these are not static things, that they change, they react, they respond, they resist, and it's a kind of work in progress that are there. I think if children understand these things about the nature of religion, then it's not an issue whether they study 2 religions or 5 religions, because that's not the purpose, to make them literate in any particular religion, but it is to make them understand the nature of human experience of religion.
You're too polite to just jump in, but you're welcome to do so
too
any
much
time.
respect for Farid. No, I think it's really important as well that this document doesn't provide a curriculum. It's not a syllabus. It is a set of principles, I think. It's got what's called there the national entitlement. And it's not about prescribing a certain set number of religions and worldviews that you have to teach. And actually, the word worldview is huge, and I think we still need to get our heads round that.
So why don't we just drop the word religion from this and say this is worldview?
Because there's also, as Farid was saying, well, yes, exactly. but there's an important bit there about understanding religion, because religion. But
that's also part of a worldview. You could lose the word religion altogether.
But there is a dimension to that which is religious, which accounts for it as being, for example, if you have a political worldview, then I think there is a validity still within that. But I want to stress.
We don't call PE sport and football.
No, we don't. But then we still call it physical education. I'd be quite happy with religious education, but that's by the by. But my point is that this isn't a prescribed curriculum, and it's up to schools and it's up to really the people who are going to work on this now to create a curriculum that is significant and meaningful and coherent for the schools.
It's about broadening people's understanding of the world in which they live,
about
and
the world and themselves. Yes.
Yeah.
And we're getting on to sort of what the purpose of the Commission's report is. And the point was brought up about a different purpose of RE in faith schools. I worry we're going to continue to see this fragmentation about the disagreement of what is the purpose of religious education. There are many people that do have this wonderful view of religion and worldview education is about learning about diversity of worldviews, is sort of understanding how, getting the skills to navigate these things. There are many people who still see the purpose of religious education as faith formation. That undermines the subject. That leads to negative views about the subject. That leads to people, us needing to maintain the right to withdraw. It fundamentally devalues the subject, and we need to agree on what is the purpose of learning about worldviews.
I think
I'm going to have to bring James in at this particular point. Believe it or not, we are actually running out of time. This is not just applicable, James, is it, to the UK? This is a world philosophy where we all need to educate ourselves and future generations about where we fit in and how we can improve our lives and the lives of other people.
Yes, very much so. I often meet with people from the US, students who come over and they want to learn about what I do as a job and how it's different. And every student that I've met is very jealous of our education system, and specifically religious education, because this is something that's needed all around the world, whether it's religions and worldviews, that we explore and that we have this understanding, we have this respect. We understand how religion and worldviews affect an individual's life. And it's not just limited to the UK. We can see religious ignorance and intolerance around the world.
And if you were to try to sell this idea of getting a greater understanding through this curriculum to a group of youngish people, what would you say to them?
I could open the newspaper or look online, excuse me, any day of the week. And there are stories that will help us understand. If we understand people's motivations, if we understand people's religions, either they would not have happened, or we would be able to understand those people So it's just about looking at things that are going on in today's world and helping them understand the importance that all of those things have in their lives as well, and just to navigate today's world, whether they're religious or not, to navigate today's world and the issues that they face.
James, thank you very much indeed. Look, we've got about 30 to 40 seconds to go. Wrap it up. Farid, has it been rewarding, and have you learnt a lot from this?
Absolutely. I mean, it was a fantastic experience. We heard from so many people, thousands of people, and it has really enriched us collectively and personally in our understanding of what's happening.
And it still means a lot to people in their everyday lives. Is that something you discovered?
Yes, I think it is. And ultimately it is also about big questions in life. And I think people at one stage or the other, whether you are religious or not, you do come across large questions of meaning, suffering, justice. And both religious and non-religious worlds, we have something to contribute. And I think at the individual level, it helps to make sense of life. And that's what the purpose is.
Thank you. James, a gentleman in the studio, thank you very much indeed for helping to complete my religious education. But the bell has gone. Class is over, but we will be back pretty soon. Bye-bye for now.